You'd like to think that Louisville's obsession with Kentucky sort of fizzles out in the offseason, but now they've got players straight up lying about what former Wildcats have said about their program.
You are Locked On Kentucky, your daily podcast on the Kentucky Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, what's going on, Big Blue Nation? Welcome on into Locked On Kentucky, your daily Kentucky Wildcats podcast. I'm your host, Lance Dawe, and on today's episode of Locked On Kentucky, we're going to talk about a Louisville player just straight up lying about what Tre Mitchell had to say about the Cardinals. Also on today's episode, going to talk about what Field of 68 has to say about Kentucky being too good. We've had that conversation already, but they discussed it again, and I can at least understand where they're coming from, even though I still don't agree. And then to wrap up the show, we have a CBS Sports writer that actually does think Kentucky is a national championship contender, unlike whoever wrote their preseason top 25 article. Thank you guys so much for making Locked On Kentucky your first listen every single day. I want to remind everyone out there that we are free and available on all platforms. If you're watching on YouTube, would love it if you subscribe to the show. We're trying to get to 20,000 subscribers before the start of the season. Thank you to everyone who has subscribed, and if you haven't yet, join up. It's going to be a very fun offseason. If you're listening on podcast, please leave a comment. Let me know what you think about the show. All right, let's go ahead and get into it. So Louisville commit Sananda Fru has talked about on Field of 68 his relationship with Tre Mitchell and about Louisville, and he was on there for an interview, I believe actually earlier today, and he just straight up lied about what Tre Mitchell had to say about the Louisville Cardinals. He was talking about Louisville, why he ended up going there. He said he credits most of it to his agent, the whole process and everything. He gives thanks to him for kind of setting everything up and making it happen. And then he starts talking about one of his teammates, saying he played at Kentucky, and he told me Louisville has the best fans in the whole world. And of course, Goodman and Dowster, I believe, or Dowster, Rob, whatever his last name is, were talking to him, and they paused, and they said, hold up, who are you talking about? What Kentucky player said that Louisville has the best fans in the whole world? And Fru continued to talk, like didn't even really answer the question. And Goodman said, it's Tre Mitchell, right? And then he said, yes, it is Tre Mitchell. First and foremost, just want to say this, you'd like to think, and I said this at the top, you'd like to think that Louisville's obsession with the Kentucky Wildcats would slow down at some point. You know, obviously there's the back and forth online. You can't ever really stop that. But man, has it been aggressive between Louisville and Kentucky fans on Twitter as of late. It is just a constant back and forth of my player's better than your player, and your player sucks, and my player's great, and here's why this is right, and here's why this is wrong. And a lot of Louisville fans just take the initiative, and I'm not trying to sit here and just dog a rival fan base just because it really does feel like, for the most part, Louisville fans take the little brother mentality, and they're constantly whining, complaining, talking about Big Blue Nation, why Louisville's disrespected, why Pat Kelsey's this, why JQ is that, why Kentucky's never going to be this under Mark Pope. They initiate a lot of this, and of course, Kentucky fans, not knowing any better, sort of bite. They kind of take the bait, and it's a constant back and forth, like a cat and mouse game. Nobody ever shuts up, but man, you'd like to think that you leave the discourse to the fans. But here you have now a player that is coming in, playing for the Cardinals this season, somebody that Louisville fans are very excited about in Fru, apparently, and he just straight up lies. Do you know how we know that he just straight up lied about what Tre Mitchell had to say about Louisville having the best fans in the world? Because Tre Mitchell took to the Instagram post that was made, I believe, about this video earlier today, and he said, y'all know that's cap, BBN, L's down. This is all Louisville fans and apparently now players can talk about. Kentucky. Mark Pope, what they're doing with their roster. Oh, they're this. Oh, they're that. Oh, they're going to suck. They're going to be terrible. They're not going to do this. They're not going to do that. Rarely do you ever see them talk about their own team, just about their own team. It always has to be in relation to somebody else. And I just find that very entertaining. I wanted to start the show by saying, yeah, that doesn't shock me at all. I'm going to be honest with you, though, all jokes aside, I'm sure Fru either misheard something or just straight up misspoke. He wasn't intentionally trying to lead people astray. But it is just a straight-up lie, at least according to Tre Mitchell, who, I'm going to be honest with you, if the question is what fan base is the best, what's the best one that you've seen, Tre Mitchell, somebody that's played in both the Big 12 and in the SEC at this point, I'd like to think that Tre Mitchell's not going to go out of his way to tell Fru, oh, it's Louisville, of all places. I strongly doubt that, especially considering what Mitchell had to say about it. In all seriousness, though, take the jokes out of it. Take that you're going to be little brother Louisville. Take all of that out of it. To be serious with you for a second, this is fine. This is not that big of a deal. I find it funny that Mitchell had to call him out on it. But the rivalry here online, I really do hope the energy kind of spills over into the game later this year. I'm thrilled that there's some fire here. I'm thrilled that Kentucky and Louisville fans want to go back and forth, and there's actually some merit to it. Do you realize just how good both of these teams are going to be? I know I do a Kentucky podcast, but reality check, guys, most of our rivals heading into this season are going to be pretty dang good, and we got to go to the KFC Yum Center, or just Rupp Arena Light, I guess, if some of you like to call it that. We've got to go on the road to take on Pat Kelsey in year 2. This should be a fun game. There should be a lot of fire here. There should be a spark between these two programs. And I'm not saying we got to do what happened in the TBT and we got to throw punches and spit on people. All I want to see is two teams go out there and care about the rivalry and about the game and show some passion. This is one of the best rivalries in all of college basketball for a reason, and I love the discourse that comes from it. I think it's so fun. And I think it's even funnier that one of Louisville's own players just straight up lied about what Tre Mitchell had to say. I also want to lay this one out here too, and we'll probably talk about this a little bit more in depth as we get closer to the season. Upon further review, I'm actually happy that we're playing Louisville so early in the season, even if Jaden Quaintance is healthy or not. We started off so hot last season with a much more, with an improved roster, a more physical roster. I'd like to see us try it out early, especially considering we get Purdue and Georgetown already. Cool. Awesome. If everybody's healthy and we start things off quick, then I would like to see Louisville and get their A game too. I mean, I think both these teams are going to come out the gate swinging, and I think it's going to make for a very, very fun game. So that's my thought on Fru just lying about what Mitchell had to say and just the overall online discourse. I mean, it's nasty on Twitter right now. I'll say that. So if you guys have any thoughts on Fru, on the discourse online, on what these two programs are going to be doing here in a few months, you can leave it all in the YouTube comments below. All right, I want to get to Field of 68, kind of running back to the is Kentucky too good conversation, because Jack Pilgrim wrote a great article on KSR about summing up what they had to say, I believe in a live stream like earlier today. And I want to go through some of the quotes here from the video. You can go check it out, of course, Field of 68 on YouTube. I understand where they're coming from at this point. I still disagree. Before we get to that, though, tell you guys about our friends over at Monarch Money. Do you guys ever check your bank account and just wonder, shoot, where did all of my money go? What did I spend it on? Well, between dining out, online shopping, entertainment, it's really easy to lose track. And that's where Monarch Money comes in. It's your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is not just a budgeting app. It's complete financial command over everything going on in your life. You can track all of your accounts, investments, spending all in one place, so you stop just managing your money and you start building wealth. When I started using Monarch Money, I realized just how much I was spending on all of these extra subscriptions. Sometimes even multiple accounts underneath the same subscription that I only needed one for. It's really convenient. It's all in one place. You can collab with your partners to make it super easy to kind of gel things together financially. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. You can use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. All right, continuing along here on the Monday edition of Locked On Kentucky, Lance Dawe hanging out here with you. Really appreciate you guys checking out the show today. If you have not subscribed to the YouTube channel or the podcast feed, I would greatly appreciate it if you did so. Trying to get to 20,000 subscribers. 20,000. It's so crazy that we can even say that we're close to it. I really appreciate everybody that's been here for the long haul. For those of you that are new, for those of you that are considering subscribing, to join up. It's going to be such a fun offseason. We'll get to talk with you guys about what's going on with UK, about the roster, about the rotation. It's going to be so fun to speculate. I cannot wait to get into it. subscribe. Now is a wonderful time to do so. So as I mentioned earlier, you can go check out both the KSR article about this, and then you can also go check out Field of 68 on YouTube. It's where the actual video originates from. Pilgrim just did a really good job of summing everything up as far as quotes go, and I have my thoughts and takes on it. So we talked about this, I want to say, when Denzel Aberdeen committed, at least, or rather the week that Aberdeen committed. And Field of 68 immediately asked, does Kentucky have too many mouths to feed? Are they too good? Are they too good? Waiter, my steak is too succulent and my wine is too exquisite. Am I too good? And at the time, I thought it was a ridiculous conversation to have. I thought it was so stupid compared to the discourse for Kentucky the year prior, which we'll get to that in a second. Field of 68 talked about it again. They talked about teams that had won the offseason and teams that had lost the offseason. And here's the first quote about Otega Oweh and this Kentucky team as a whole. Quote, I don't think Oweh coming back has anywhere near the impact on what Kentucky's season could be as what LeBaron Philon coming back does for Alabama or Tahad Pettiford coming back does for Auburn. I think that takes both of those teams from borderline top 25-ish, if that, to a top 10 or top 15 in the country. Whereas with Kentucky, I think getting Oweh back takes them from being like a top 8 to a top 10 team in America to we really have to have a conversation about whether or not this could be the number one team. They could be the best team in college basketball. I still think it's probably Purdue, Houston, Florida, to me in that order. But I don't think you can have the conversation of who's the best team in college basketball without having Kentucky in that conversation. We'll stop there. I'm pretty sure this is Goodman talking. I don't disagree with anything that he's saying. I think that Oweh coming back moves the needle for Kentucky, absolutely. But look at the supporting cast. Look at what Mark Pope has put together. This is a really good, on paper, this is a really good team. Getting Oweh back is awesome. Absolutely. I wanted him back, desperately so. But the Wildcats are going to be good. They're going to be really good. And if you listen to my most recent show about Kentucky in the top 25, I talked about CBS Sports and their preseason top 25 and just how much I hated it. And if you guys remember my top 5, Houston, BYU, Florida, Duke, Kentucky, and Purdue is at 6. Goodman here is saying it's probably Purdue, Houston, Florida to me in that order, and then you have to have a conversation about Kentucky. We're on the same page here. As far as cream of the crop in college basketball, that makes the most sense to me. Get UConn out of here, by the way, with this top 10, top 25 conversation. Just, I do, until they prove it, get them out of here. Jack Pilgrim makes the comment of like, that. Well, that's the good news. They've got a lot of talent. And then he goes into, Goodman, do they have way too much talent? How much here is too much, like Pilgrim asks. And here's the quote. I think there will be too many guys on that team that you're going to have to feed. Money-wise, a lot of those dudes are making money, and they're going to all need minutes. Quaintance, I don't think he's going to be ready for the start of the season, but the perimeter, look how loaded that thing is. You've got Oweh, who played a ton at Kentucky. You got Jalen Lowe, who played a lot at Pittsburgh. Denzel Aberdeen, who obviously is coming over to play major minutes from the defending national champs, Florida. Cam Williams, coming over from Tulane. He can really shoot the crap out of the ball. Colin Chandler is coming back, waiting for his turn at Kentucky. Jasper Johnson is coming in as one of the top freshmen in the country. Trent Noah, we saw him go off at Rupp Arena last year. What is that? 7 perimeter guys? That's a lot of mouths to feed. That's a good problem to have, but it's still a problem, an obstacle that Mark Pope has to be able to navigate. If you have 1 or 2 guys that are upset in your locker room about the minutes they're getting, making sure they're happy with those NIL paychecks that keep coming in, that's probably going to be the key for Mark Pope to kind of keep this thing going. Let's stop there. That was both Goodman and Rob talking there about Kentucky having too many guys. First and foremost, I hope Jaden Quaintance is ready for the beginning of the season. In fact, at this point, just based on what we've heard about his trajectory, I'd like to think that he is, at least in different pockets of minutes. I think Garrison will end up starting. That's my just projection right now. It's crazy that it's already June, by the way. But I think that Quaintance will be ready. But yes, Oweh played a lot. Jalen Lowe was beat to death at Pittsburgh. Aberdeen played a lot and is going to play even more, I think, at Kentucky. Cam Williams was the star freshman for the Green Wave a season ago. Colin Chandler is knocking the rust off, and he's ready for year 2 under Pope. Jasper Johnson, according to Mark Pope, is going to be the most dangerous scoring freshman in all of college basketball this season. That's a lot of guys that you have to get touches. If there is one coach right now in college basketball that I would trust to manage those minutes, the rotations, and who gets what, it's Mark Pope. With the way that he managed the roster last season and the way that he handled the rotations and everybody got theirs, I expect him to be able to do the same. Now, it's not going to be the exact same, right? You're going to have different guys take over at different positions that maybe Kentucky was weaker at a season ago. Maybe Yelovich plays a little bit more than we expect him to, and Kentucky at power forward is really strong. Maybe at center, JQ plays a ton, and Garrison slides up, and that's a rock-solid 1-2, and nobody else really gets to touch it. Who knows? But on paper, and after seeing what we saw in year 1, I think that Pope can handle that. I think the answer to that is yes. This isn't a, is there too many mouths to feed? It's like, we have enough. We have enough. We can put the spoon in everybody's mouth, and we've seen him do it already. The thing that I have an issue with is, what was the conversation last season? What was the thing that Kentucky fans were talking about alongside everyone else that had concerns about UK? It was about whether or not Kentucky had a star. Did Kentucky have a bunch of role players from other schools? And did they have a single guy that could go out there and make plays on his own? Or did they have a go-to guy? And now the question is, do they have too many go-to guys? Do they have too many A-list players? Quaintance, Lowe, Owe, Jasper, frankly. I don't see how you can have the conversation about Mark Pope last season and saying, well, they don't have a go-to guy, and yet they won 24 games and were one of the best teams in the country. And then you go to this season and say, well, they have too many go-to guys. Can they make this happen? I think they can. I think that we just saw it, frankly. So that's where I push back. I understand the question. Do they have too many mouths to feed? Do they have too many guys on the perimeter? My answer to that is we've already seen them handle it. And the question last year was, well, they have too many guys that are going to be too balanced. This year, it's like, yeah, I think they're gonna balance it even better. And I think we should be more excited about Kentucky because they now have like 3 guys they can go to. It's not just Owe. They've got other guys that can handle the ball. Jalen Lowe is going to take a step forward. Jasper Johnson's going to be super fun to watch with the ball in his hands. That's not an issue to me. And this is how they wrap up. They say, I'm not ready to say that Kentucky is preseason number 1, but maybe. I mean, again, I think they've got the depth that of those other teams don't have. They're in the mix, I guess. I don't think that they're in the mix for preseason number 1 for me, but they're somewhere from 4 to 8. It's going to be figuring out role allocation. I think it's the one thing that probably has me when I say that there's a top 3. That's probably the biggest thing about Kentucky. How are the pieces going to fit? How are the personalities going to fit? How is the locker room going to all come together? If there's one guy that can figure it out, it's probably going to be Mark Pope. That's what Rob says there at the end. And I completely agree. If there's one coach that could figure it out, considering what we just saw, it's Mark Pope. I want to wrap up today's episode talking about another article from CBS Sports. So we talked about their preseason top 25, I think on the most recent episode of the show, the Friday edition. And I did not like their top 25. Their preseason top 25 I thought was bad, just straight up. Which everybody's entitled to their own opinion, and it's preseason rankings. How much do we really know? But it felt like there was a lot out of place, man. There was a lot out of place for CBS. Isaac Trotter released an article earlier today ranking SEC basketball teams by tiers. And he started off, by the way, making a joke about how while the SEC did finish 500 in conference play, it dominated nearly every single metric in 2024, 2025. Very funny joke. If you know, you know. Can't believe Kentucky only finished, or everybody finished only 500 in conference play combined. Surely they suck. But he tiered out the SEC into 5 different tiers. The basement, Bubblicious, which I don't know how I feel about that as a term, tournament team, top 25 caliber club, and then the title contenders. He thinks that right now there are 2 teams in tier 1 for national championship contenders, and that is the Florida Gators and the Kentucky Wildcats. He talks about how it's going to look a little different for Florida with Xavier Lee transferring from Princeton, Boogie Flan transferring from Arkansas. Then you've got Howe, Condon, and Chinyelu back. You've also got Clavzar back, Handglotten as well. A lot of really solid options off the bench, but it's going to look a little different with Martin and Clayton Jr. gone. They should still be good at what they were a season ago, just destroying teams on the offensive glass, being able to protect the rim with a really, really strong front court. This is a tall, athletic, aggressive Florida team that's going to be hard to stop. And then he talks about Kentucky. His projected starting lineup right now, which I just want to say, I gave so many different outlets crap about their projected starting lineup last season, like last offseason, because it felt like we knew what was going to be what. Have at it. Anybody that wants to take a stab at it, fine. Have fun with it. Because personally, I've got my thoughts, but there's no telling what Mark Pope is going to do until we see them practice. There's a lot of different ways Kentucky could run this rotation. But according to Trotter, the projected starting lineup to him is Jalen Lowe, Otega Owe, Denzel Aberdeen, Mo Diabate, and Brandon Garrison. Top bench options being Quaintance, Yelovich, Williams, Chandler, Johnson, Marino, Hawthorne. And this is what he had to say. Kentucky's NIL budget eclipsed an eye-popping $20 million, and Mark Pope's squad should be much improved defensively with Diabate, Owe, and Aberdeen locking up on the perimeter. When Quaintance gets healthy, Kentucky will have a special defender at all 3 levels of the floor. This roster appears more athletic and dynamic than Pope's first Kentucky club. Lowe is a strong candidate for the massive efficiency spike that Lamont Butler experienced under Pope's watchful eye, and he should thrive in Kentucky's deadly transition-heavy attack. Owe, Lowe, and Aberdeen is a veteran nasty backcourt trio, but can Pope weaponize this amount of depth? First thing I want to point out here, I don't know if Trotter listens to the show, but that's like exactly what I've been saying about Lamont Butler and Jalen Lowe. And we've had some pushback saying, well, he can't shoot. I think a lot of people said the same thing about Butler last year, and then look what happened. He was an incredibly efficient player relative to anything that he ever was at San Diego State. He looked a lot better. He played a lot better. Numbers and eye test. I think Lowe, once he gets healthy, is going to do the same. And I'm excited about it. I think another great point that Trotter makes here is that Kentucky has more athleticism and are more dynamic than Kentucky's first team with Pope. Pope's last year's team was almost a one-note, we're going to knock down threes and we're going to play well in transition. Now, obviously, they were good at various things outside of that. But that's what they were known for, and that's how they won a lot of ball games. This year's team, I think, is going to be a little bit more versatile in the way that they may choose to attack it. I think you're probably going to see some numbers look more similar to what we saw with Pope's best teams at BYU, and I'm just going to say, maybe the numbers look similar. The teams are going to look a lot different. I'll tell you that. I think Kentucky has more speed and athleticism. I keep talking about speed. They need to have kids that can recover and not get blown by off the dribble. Yes, you've got a great center in Quaintance, but you can't ask him to do everything. Also, question, this is probably something we're going to have to save a whole episode for, but just question, is Quaintance going to be as effective as we think he's going to be if he's going to be away from the basket so much? Because we have to expect that, right? With Mark Pope and Amari Williams and Brandon Garrison, the way that he liked to run those two guys, is Quaintance going to be a less effective option for UK than maybe we expect because he's not going to be around the rim as much on offense? That is something that we do have to have a conversation about. And I'm not sitting here projecting one thing or another, positively or negatively. I'm just saying it's an interesting question. It could make him better for all we know. Who knows? But I agree with what Trotter has to say here. And I do agree with the question, and again, I think it's a fair question from Field of 68 as well. How does Kentucky handle it? How do they handle the depth? It is a valid question. I just feel like, in my opinion, there's also a valid answer to it, which is why I'm so comfortable with what this roster is right now. That's why I'm so excited about it. We'll see. But man, on paper, I'm really excited about UK. I think they are a national championship contender. And anything short of that, I think, would be considered failure. And I'm not saying winning a title. I'm saying competing for a title. I think you understand the difference. To really quickly go through here, Tier 2 of the teams that are top 25 caliber, Tennessee here with Nate Ament, Kentucky recruiting legend. Arkansas here is in the top 25, at least contenders. Alabama and Auburn as well. Tier 3 NCAA tournament teams. Vanderbilt is here. Missouri is here. Oklahoma, Mississippi State tips off the Bubblicious tier, which, again, don't know how I feel about that. Ole Miss is in the Bubblicious tier, as well as Texas, Texas A&M, Georgia, and then the basement, LSU, who had a great transfer portal class. I want to just throw that out there. Just a calm observation, just to see, hey, by the way, if LSU's any better, that's why. South Carolina rounds out here as the worst team in the SEC, at least according to Isaac Trotter. Kentucky's a national championship contender. I think I have my reservations about some of the things that this roster may not do well, but overall, I think they're going to be a better team than they were a season ago, and that's the message for the next several months. That is going to be the message for Kentucky. So that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Kentucky. You can follow the show on Twitter at Locked On UK, follow me on Twitter at @LanceDahl_, and follow the show over on Instagram. That is at Kentucky Podcast. Any questions, comments, concerns, you can leave those in the YouTube comments below. You can hit me on the socials. I will see you all tomorrow for another episode of Locked On Kentucky. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day. And of course, God bless.